Hi, guys. Welcome to a very special bonus episode of The Rope of Hope. I have tonight's episode streaming across multiple Facebook pages because we are doing tonight's episode in remembrance and in honor of 9/11. Before we get started, please, if you are compelled and would like to help support this broadcast and help with getting stories out there that promote healing, promote growth, please go to buymeacoffee.com/this fat girl life. By being a supporter, you are contributing to the big picture project of promoting, inspiration, hope, and healing. And you will get content to sponsor and supporter only information there. So buymeacoffee.com/this fat girl life. Now, like I said, tonight's episode is about honoring 9/11. Many of you, and myself included, remember 9/11 very vividly. It is one of those days that will forever be etched in our minds, in our hearts. We will never forget our feelings that day, what we were doing. All of it's there forever. Tonight, I am actually being joined by Payton Lynch, whose father-in-law, her husband's father, was lost in that tragedy. Payton, thank you so much for being with me tonight.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Kimberly. Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Before we go into this conversation, why don't you tell everybody just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So again, hello, everyone. My name is Payton Lynch, and I am a native of Allentown, Pennsylvania. I'm the oldest of five, and so came from a big family and really spent much of my childhood. I was very fortunate to visit the Walt Disney World Park in Orlando my entire life and decided that I never wanted to leave. So very fortunate that today I live and work in Orlando as a cast member. My ultimate dream came true when I became a cast member. And you might be wondering, well, what does that have to do with 9/11? Well, the reality is that my husband, who I met while living in Pennsylvania, he did lose his dad in 9/11. And I'll never forget 9/11 myself, even being very young, second grade at the time. I'll never forget coming home and seeing my mom glued to the television and knowing something was wrong. Because I think kids, they have a way of knowing, right, innately, when there's just something amiss. And I felt that for my parents. And I cannot imagine being a parent trying to explain to my second grader what just happened in our country. But other than being impacted as an American, and in the countless ways all of our lives have been impacted by 9/11, I never knew anyone personally until I had met my husband. And he took me out on a date one night when I thought was just a regular September evening date in 2013. And it turned out that he was sharing his story of Robert Henry Lynch Jr., his dad, who was the property manager at Two World Trade. And on the day of 9/11, he called home to say that he was out of the building and safe, and then actually later went back into the building to save other people's lives. So an incredible legacy that he leaves behind. And I just knew from that minute that my husband was a very special person, and not that he's shaped by what happened to him, but that he is certainly impacted by it. And the resiliency I saw in him was something I couldn't let go of. And when the past year happened, I think we all have been through a really tough time in the past year. And we were hit pretty hard as well. And I said, you know what? I think this is time for me to learn something about my husband's story and the countless other 9/11 surviving children who lost parents that day. So that's when Rise from the Ashes, my book, was born. I started interviewing 9/11 surviving children, and that's what brings me chatting with you today.
So, your husband was 13 years old?
That's correct.
When that happened? And you said that he shared a lot with you. I'm not going to ask you to go into details, obviously, that's a very private conversation. But how does healing happen with that?
Yeah. It seems impossible, right? I mean, you're 13 and it's a tumultuous time. So as it is. I remember being in middle school. I mean, I can't imagine being a middle school boy at any time and then losing your parent and in a national tragedy. It doesn't happen alone, that's for sure. And I think through faith, family, and friends, those seem to be the three major things that helped my husband through the past 20 years, as well as many of the other 9/11 surviving children. When we are supported by community of people who are here for us, don't make us feel alone, and also are there to provide the resources we need, right? Make sure that my husband got the help he needed, was in therapy, was never felt alone, right? Always felt supported. I think that are some of the biggest things that really helped him in his journey.
So now, how do you, as a wife, support your husband through this? Because I know as the anniversary comes up, that's got to be hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it's incredibly difficult. And as a wife, I have often felt the need to shield where I can. But I also recognize that can't always be my role, right? And just like it with being a parent or a wife or what have you, we can't always step in front of things to shield people from them. But we can set up offensive and defensive mechanisms to help us get through it. So, I can notice when he's getting into a downward spiral of social media. And I mean, just with the recent events in Afghanistan alone, it has felt that much more impactful for this 20th anniversary. And you really can't go online or watch the news or anything without hearing about it. And so when I'm noticing those things, that's when I said, hey, it's time for us to put our defense mechanisms up, put the blinders on, put the time limits on the social media and step away. And then offensively, look for something fun that we can do together, right? Because the more joy we're able to put into our lives, we've got to replace whatever we removed with that defense mechanism with something positive.
So I'm going to ask a personal question, and you can flat out say you don't want to answer it if you choose, and I will not in any way, shape, or form be offended. I know when you and I spoke previously, you had said that you guys will be completely off social media coming soon. What do you do to honor your father-in-law's memory at that time?
Yeah, I'm happy to share. For us, it's really getting away and being with family as much as possible. So this year, I'm feeling very fortunate. I don't think we've been home for 9/11 since moving to Florida 6 years ago, but we will be home. And we're going to be able to spend time with his family. We'll be at the beach. We'll be flying kites because that's something that his dad liked to do. We'll be sharing stories about him and just spending time together. And that has been what we've always liked to do. Even here, it's a lot of quiet time, right? There is a very beautiful memorial actually in Central Florida, and I'll never forget. We were in the car together and we drove by. I was like, is that a sign for a 9/11 memorial? Like, I never imagined in Orlando, Florida, we would find one, but there was a small one put up by a Boy Scout troop. And so, sometimes we'll go and sit in front of that and just be a part of like a smaller ceremony. But for us, it's usually not in the city. That's just never where my husband's wanted to be, and understandably so. So there are many people who that's exactly where they want to be. And I think that's the thing, is that there's no one size fits all with dealing with grief. And we're all allowed to walk through this in the way that's best for us.
So as someone who is not impacted the way that your family is, how can someone from the outside best honor the memory of those lost?
You know, it's funny. I can actually think of ways to not that his family would probably prefer not. You know, I think letting people know that you're here for them and you see them and you care, just in the same way that you're talking to someone who lost someone, it's the anniversary of that loss as well. The big not to do that I would recommend is to not post pictures that are triggering, such as pictures of the burning buildings. You know, that can, imagine you lost someone in a car accident, and every year on the anniversary of that, someone posted the picture of the car accident on your Facebook wall. I mean, that's truly what 9/11 families go through every single year on 9/11. And it's incredibly painful for them to have to relive that day, and incredibly triggering as well to many of them, as well as others, you know, who remember that day so vividly.
Okay, I am floored right now. So, and maybe it's just me being very naive because I've never noticed a picture like that. People post that?
Yes. Yeah. It's one of the main reasons that and I'm impacted in a very different way than my husband and others. And so I cannot speak for everyone, of course. But I mean, it's one of the main reasons that we found ourselves avoiding social media on those days, because the feed is very much full of that. And what I would maybe appreciate seeing more is, you know, the pictures of the lights that they do where the tower stood, or, you know, something that's a bit more respectful in nature to what had happened. But yeah, it's out there, and even now I'm like, I've got to start getting off there soon, because I'm already starting to see a lot of things pop up as we get closer.
Well, let me just say, I mean, I'm not apologizing necessarily for myself because I've never posted anything like that. I can't imagine doing that. But I am so sorry that you guys have to endure that at all. I mean, it's not something I would ever want to endure. So I'm sorry that your family has had to.
Thank you. It's hard, right? I talk about this a lot in the book as well, is that being married to someone who lost a parent and growing up an American understanding the gravity of this event, I sort of teeter on a tightrope at times, because I see it from the outside and then I see it from the inside as well. And I understand why people do it. It's because there's a shock factor involved with that. And two, I do think when they see that, they do, like, it makes you stop and think and remember, and how did that happen? But there's probably better ways for us to go about that in a way that isn't as impactful to those who are personally impacted.
Now, another thing that you and I kind of talked about previously is the fact that while we remember it very vividly, we remember, I can tell you exactly what I was doing.
Right.
Down to the minute. I remember seeing it on TV. There is a younger generation that this is a historical event.
Right.
It's not something that they experienced. Now, I know there are a lot of resources out there for, the younger generations to learn what 9/11 truly, what truly happened on that day. Can you point out any of those?
Absolutely. I am a huge advocate of the memorial in New York City. If there are people listening who were not alive during the time, or didn't live close to the city, and so therefore, don't feel as close to it, it's a very beautifully well done memorial, and it's emotional, and it's a tough place to be. just as is any memorial, similar memorial. I remember having the same feelings at Pearl Harbor, and I know people have said those things when they visit Holocaust museums. It's absolutely devastating to go to those places, but when we do and we take the time to learn about these events, we develop empathy for the people who were impacted. And the point of history is so that we do take account of these things in hopes that they won't happen again. And so as painful it is for me to go to the memorial, as painful it is for my husband to go to the memorial, we understand its value to so many people as a learning opportunity as well for those who weren't directly impacted or weren't alive at the time.
Well, Payton, I am so honored that you have come on the show and have had this conversation. I know you said you were in second grade when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming you were at school because you said you came home and you saw your parents. What is the most impactful thing that you remember of that day?
It's actually of a few days later, around that time period. My dad, so I had never been to New York City prior to this. And so as my parents were trying to explain that, bad people came and did a bad thing in this city that I knew where it was, but had never been, my dad ended up driving us to New Jersey to take us to see the skyline a few days after this happened. And I don't remember the exact time frame, but it was close enough to it just happening that, there was still smoke coming from where the building stood.
Wow.
And I will never forget seeing the sirens of all of the lights on cars, because you couldn't get into the city, right? The furthest we could get into was New Jersey, and that was all the intention was anyway. But my dad wanted us to see, like, something happened here. This is history here. I remember really no cars being on the road because at the time people were not driving, and soon after there was a gas shortage. But I'll never forget seeing the city skyline for the first time, and again, not really understanding because I was so young, but acknowledging, like, I could just feel like how bad this was. And so, that is burned into my memory for the rest of time.
I can't imagine. I really can't. Well, Payton, I want to thank you again for coming on the show. I am honored that you have shared as much as you have. I know you did say that you have a book, Rise from the Ashes.
Yes.
Just talking with other people who lost their parents in this tragedy. And that's the only way I know how to describe it, as a tragedy. If somebody were wanting to purchase that book, where could they find that?
Absolutely. So you could either head to my website at paytonlynch.com or visit Amazon or barnesandnobles.com. Either place it has the book available. It's Rise from the Ashes by Payton Lynch. And right now, the ebook is available on Amazon for 99 cents for the first 30 days. And then if you do decide instead to purchase a paperback copy, $1 of each of the proceeds for the book will go to an organization called Tuesday's Children, who was incredibly impactful in getting me to speak with all of these folks that I spoke with, but they also have been helping the families of 9/11 as well as other families impacted by war violence over the past 20 years. They're an incredible organization, so would love to put in that plug for them as well.
Okay. And so I'm sure you saw on the bottom of the screen, I did put your web address. I am now putting the name of that organization, Tuesday's Children, on there as well so that people can see that. I know I personally will be purchasing your book.
Thank you.
Again, I want to thank you so much for coming on and speaking with me. This is one of the ways that I know to honor 9/11 is by putting this information out there, by having, people share what they went through, and just by showing love. That's the only thing I know to do. So, you guys, that is it for tonight. I want to thank you so much for being here, for watching this, for helping support the honoring of 9/11. And I pray that all of you have a good night. And I pray that your hearts are full right now, that you are with people you love, and that you always remember what this meant, what 9/11 was and what it meant, and that you continue to honor. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.